As investigators sift through the rubble of what used to be a beachfront home, a look back reminds us of the real danger threatening the lives of firefighters and residents. Strong winds stoked this raging house fire, consuming 2 homes and damaging 2 more. Hot temperatures made it all the more difficult to put out. Numerous firefighters were treated for heat exhaustion.
The equipment, the heat.
It's also pretty windy out there.
Well, the wind's got a lot to do with the fire, the way it goes.
The fire started in what used to be a home on this foundation shortly after 2 p.m. A teenage girl inside managed to get out safely. 13-year-old Andrew White was home alone next door and called 911.
I was kind of scared, but I just kept telling myself in my mind, like, don't panic, everything's going to be okay.
It's just too much for words right now. You just can't, it has to sink in yet.
With the curious looking on from the water, firefighters made a valiant effort to save neighboring homes. 2 of the men were critically injured, one by flying shrapnel, and they had to be med-flighted to Boston as anxious relatives stood by.
It's a very congested neighborhood. Firefighters very aggressively attacked that fire at great peril to their own to save the neighborhood, as we see here now.
Someone placed flowers near the charred remains where Hull firefighter John Clasby and another risked their own lives to save others.
It's been very difficult. We're a very small department. We work very closely together. And to see a brother firefighter go down is a very hard thing to do.
Physically beaten up and emotionally drained, Hull firefighters today are forced to deal with their own mortality and chosen profession.
Sometimes it's wonderfully rewarding, and then there are days when you wish you didn't get out of bed.
This is one of them. They almost lost 2 of their own. 56-year-old firefighter Robert Neal is in fair condition after trying to save 37-year-old John Clasby, who is critical. Now this small 24-man department is emotionally struggling to survive.
The majority of this department has grown up here. So there's a tendency for us to work together, to socialize together. We travel together.
They put their lives on the line together every day. But unlike big city departments, 17-year vet Tom Sullivan says sometimes they have much more at stake. And more often than not, it helps when they show up at the door of someone they know.
I mean, the adrenaline just pumps a little bit faster.
But yesterday's firestorm was different. Sullivan saw one of his brothers go down.
I just dropped my line and ran to get him out. We lugged him to the ambulance, and I was back on the line.
Now as he looks around, he feels pride in his department.
This was rewarded. We saved this neighborhood. We saved this neighborhood.
But they still don't know about Clasby and Neal, and that, says Sullivan, is the worst part of the job.
It happens. It's sad, it's scary, but we have to live with it. We chose this profession.
Just as maintenance crews sweep away the charred bits, those who lost everything to this fire would like to sweep away the harsh reality. Neighbors who were spared offered comfort in the form of coffee and kind words.
They lost everything, their family photos, mementos, everything. It's just, but the neighbors, I can't say enough about the neighbors.
Neighbors who gave these firefighters water as they battled to save homes. Neighbors like Ed White, who helped the firefighters and then hosed down his own house to try and save it. He knows he's lucky.
It's just been a very emotional thing for the whole family, the whole neighborhood. You know, it's a tight neighborhood here. You know, when you drive into town and see medevac helicopters in the air, and not knowing if it's one of your kids in there.
Instead, 2 Hull firefighters were med-flighted to Boston in critical condition. John Clasby jolted by downed power lines and wounded by shrapnel, and Robert Neal also shocked with electricity while trying to save Clasby. When you take a look at the rubble, it's hard to believe that all of this devastation was caused by the careless disposal of a cigarette stoked by some dry grass. It's tough news for residents and firefighters to take.
It's so dry that you have to be so careful. But people don't think. That's the whole thing.
A picture pulled from the wreckage shows what once stood before fire tore it down. Arthur Vachon lost all of his pictures and just about everything else.
We'll manage.
Quite a shot coming back here today.
Yeah, it is. Sure is.